both the middle fingers as a salute, instead, like a certain guy named Richard Sanchez did. In fact,
Unfortunately,
he actually stole it from us.
yes, this is what happened to Chelsea. According to her blog, she posted this. Dear Internet, titled Dear Internet, submitted by Chelsea on November 1st, 2016 at 10:55 p.m. In Twitter. I quit Twitter and it was a big story. But with the exceptions of the first story on Comic Beat, I did not read any of the coverage until yesterday. It was Halloween, so I was looking for scares. Wow, that was so interesting. I want to take a minute here to correct some inaccuracies I saw reported again and again. They asked me about my feminist agenda cover was not an alternate cover. It was the primary cover. Issue 8 I did not come out Issue 8 did not come out last Wednesday. It came out this week before. It had not just posted the cover image. It was it has been floating around for months. I had just announced it that Mockingbird had been canceled. That's been public knowledge for a while. I did not get blow I did not get blowback for asking people to buy the comic to send a message to Marvel to make a mere comic books for women superheroes. That tweet was over a week old and met with a lot of support and at least, to my knowledge, one remarkable things about reading the coverage was seeing how it twisted the information in the comic beat story, which despite the historical headline was fairly accurate. I guess this is what happened when a story gets reported without talking to anyone involved and rely on stories for facts. Here are the facts from my perspective. I quit Twitter. I deactivated my account Thursday after receiving several misogynistic and or jerky comments the night before. Several, not dozens, not a deluge. One is too many. I was tired of wasting energy dealing with comic fandom. I posted some comics reflecting my frustration the next morning. When I logged on to deactivate, I saw I had lost I had lost approximately 15,000 followers overnight. I also saw that I lost notifications that were filling up with new followers. I saw that comments were flooding my feed. I had no idea what was happening. I had never seen this kind of activity on my account, but I figured it wasn't good. It wasn't through the with the activation. I assumed I had been trolled in some kind of organized sense, but didn't know. Still don't. Frankly, I don't care. It was moot, and I was done. I felt relieved. Okay, she said I felt relieved, like I bl- I had blocked out of the a burning house, backed it out of a burning house. Sorry. Then I started getting texts and emails from people expressing sympathy and outrage. Are you okay? They all wanted to know what what's happening on Twitter. I told them I'm fine. I kept saying, and I added that one, saying baffled. And I figured, by the way, the story was blowing up and by DEFCON 5 outrage that there was something really horrible stuff happening on Twitter, and then I was somehow at the center of it. But as I said in my previous posts about this, I didn't see any of this. I was gone. It was strange. It is a strange thing became a hashtag, and the hashtag stand with Chelsea Cain, Lumet, or whatever had nothing to do with me. I couldn't see any of those missive of support. I'm not on Twitter. It was what the heck does that mean? Includorious, incredulous at how widespread apparently was, and how everyone in my entire life seemed to know about it. I think it was an important statement, and it means let's be less jerky on Twitter and stop the normalizing sexist banter. Yesterday, I was sitting here still reeling from the bizarre coverage I had just read with its made-up facts picture culled from my Instagram account, comment section filled with new people who hate me, and saw someone post questions on my Facebook feed, and paraphrasing, is the whole Chelsea Cain thing really about the feminist t-shirts on the cover? I wanted to respond, but I didn't know the answer. What's the whole Chelsea thing? Was referring to everyone I ever talked to loves the cover. Well, there was one guy who suggested to change and asked me about my misogynist agenda. Maybe people have lashed out against it once I had left Twitter. I don't know. Then I saw someone that was typing a response, and I waited hoping to gain some clarity. But this person who responded just referenced the coverage. I also saw yesterday the comments under the made-up story I read about myself. Some people accusing me of making a whole thing up. Me? Ha! I have none given a single interview about this. I'm probably the worst person to ask about the whole Chelsea Cain thing, because I'm so out of loop. Clearly the story touched the cultural nerve. It's an important conversation to have, but also relieved to me the misinformation and hysteria can spread swiftly, conveniently, as the media chases after whatever is trending and tries to find something to say as clickbait. I thought long and hard posting this because I really don't want to feed the story any more oxygen, but I also wanted some truth to be somewhere on the internet. This is what Chelsea Cain said when she deleted her Twitter account, and this is on her blog at chelseacain.com. So please visit if you can. If you don't, you're sexist, racist, misogynistic, and possibly homophobic. So get the hell out of here, you lazy motherfuckers at the comic book industry, or better yet, those guys at wizard.com. You need to get your game on, bitches.
Oh shit! He wants to throw down. Oh shit!
That's cute. She thinks that she's threatening.
Aww.
She said that she didn't know what was going on, and she basically tried to claim that whatever was going on was the misinformation on the media's part too, because they were giving out misinformation. She basically, from what I understand from this, she basically said because it was a week ago, the message and everything, and it got a lot of attention. You notice that whole thing with Chelsea Cain mentioning that she wanted to make asking people to buy the comic to send a message to Marvel to make, because this was a week ago. And by the looks of it, she basically said that the media kind of put her in the wrong way, saying that she got chased off of Twitter. And she said she wasn't chased off of Twitter. She basically just deactivated her account because she's like, fuck it.
So she basically decided to. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, I can honestly say this: she went out with a bang, and that bang being that she might end up in an Encyclopedia Dramatic article.
But also, I wanted some truth to be somewhere, because the part where she said that the media kind of like took it out of as clickbait.
While that is certainly true, there is a list of people who can pass judgment on clickbait.
Yeah.
She is not on that list.
Yeah.
Especially when she ends up using the exact same words and phrases that the clickbaiters were using in her own blog.
Yep.
Never mind the fact that she
didn't really accuse anybody or anybody like misogyn as she worded it. It's more like she kind of, yeah, they were, but they weren't really a big threat to me. What I see here.
And yet she decided to write this whole spiel. So the lady doth protest too much.
Yeah.
I found something. It's unrelated, but it's related to Donald Trump.
What is it now?
Woman who accused Trump of rape drops her lawsuit.
Again? I heard that story.
Wasn't there something about the National Enquirer buying the rights to publish some affair thing and then just sitting on it, supposedly? Which I'm not sure.
I think so.
Honestly not sure if I'd be willing to believe that, because the National Enquirer will publish anything.
Yeah, they would. You remember when they published that whole alien spoof about Bill Clinton? Remember?
Mm-hmm.
God. Honestly, the National Enquirer
there's a reason why the line in Finding Forrester is, I read the Times for dinner. The Enquirer, it's my dessert.
Yeah.
That is officially the worst Sean Connery impression I've ever done.
You got to do it with.
Bullshit.
You got to do it with the bullshit, motherfucker.
It's bullshit. Let me tell you.
Let me tell you the story that I used to be so handsome to. Bitch, please. Macaroni and cheese, motherfucker.
I used to be the sexiest motherfucker on earth.
Yeah, that's how he says it.
But that cocksucker,
Cocksucker.
Roger Moore just had to get away from it. He stole all my bitches, the motherfucker.
He stole all my bitches, you motherfucking cocksucker.
I imagine when he was talking into playing the voice for Dragonheart, he probably went something like this. The movie's about to watch a dragon, and I'm supposed to be playing the part of the dragon.
I'm supposed
That's ridiculous. That's insane. Pays how much?
Yeah.
Well, for that much money, I'd shoot the fire out of my ass.
Yeah, but you know what? That movie wasn't really thought out. Wasn't really well thought of. But surprisingly, it became a cult hit.
Here's the thing, boy. What happened was Roger Moore will never be what I am. He is a cock. The man is a bigger cock than the Patrick Stewart.
No, you're
And that man is.
you're thinking of Timothy Dalton.
The whole the fuck shot.
Yeah, Timothy Dunn only did like how many? He only did 2 or 1.
He did a few, but the '80s were not a good time for James Bond.
I know.
Because with those two, they tried to make him more responsible and nicer, and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we have what's this faggot's name? Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan.
What a cocksucker that man is.
I actually
Brosnan is a
didn't mind him. It's
cocksucker.
just that the idea that they were going with didn't have a very long shelf life. The whole idea of him being a man out of time.
True.
And when you both him and Daniel Craig had the same problem of not knowing what the direction was supposed to be. The thing that killed Daniel Craig's run was that it seemed like they were trying to imitate the Bourne movies.
That's
Until
true.
Skyfall came along.
I heard that they're going.
Because Casino Royale was trying to
the
be
next
closer to the
James Bond
books.
will be a woman.
I seriously doubt that's going to fly, especially since
Yeah.
I think Ghostbusters pretty much has spooked everyone who was thinking of doing the whole gender switch idea. Because like I've said many times on Thursdays, failure in Hollywood is like Ebola. Nobody wants to get near it because they're afraid they'll catch it too.
I used to remember a spoof of James Bond, but then again, it wasn't a spoof. It was basically, I can't remember the film or the actor who played him, but the spoof, I think it was Casino Royale was another spoof of James Bond.
No, Casino Royale was the first book, and that was the movie that was Daniel Craig's first run.
Yeah, that one, but it was also the fact that they did I think it was Woody Allen did a spoof of James Bond.
God, Woody Allen.
Yeah, he did a spoof
Sure,
of James
the
Bond.
thing is, Woody Allen. He told me all about his adventures with
when it comes to having a comedic take on the whole spy thing, my favorite is always going to be Get Smart.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't see the film. I only remember the TV show.
Well, what was I going to say? Whew. I do have to say, Pierce Brosnan wasn't bad, but let's be honest here. Sean Connery was.
Sean Connery was the patient zero, so in its own way, it's a little unfair to always compare to him.
Well, what's a more reasonable?
I remember.
Or what's a more
Okay,
reasonable
now I remember.
comparison?
Patrick Stewart did a TV a short TV series. It was basically called Tinker Tailor Spy Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
That was another one. Because I remembered he did like some type of movie that he was like, it was kind of like James Bond in a way. I can't remember which. It was like a B. It was like a B TV movie or something like that.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, damn.
Yeah, because I remember.
So,
I don't know if that was him because recalled that it was like a spy movie. Because I know that he did a documentary for James Bond. He wanted to play James Bond, and it didn't happen. Because I heard rumors that Patrick Stewart was going to be taking over the role of James Bond, but they didn't like him because he was kind of bald. Back in the 80s, bald. I'm not kidding.
God damn.
He has a very stubborn scalp.
Yeah. And I heard the rumors about him being like because they did like he was like he played an agent in a short film, and they were thinking of putting him as the as the as as James Bond, but he did have the charm. He did have the type of charm in a way, but at the same time, they felt that he just didn't fit the part.
Yeah, and to be honest, I could see him I could see Patrick Stewart maybe being Q, but not Bond himself.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Well, first off, the problem is that he'd have to do a lot of stunt work, and I've seen him attempt to do fight scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I recalled one of the movies that he did. He was like underwater. I just can't seem to recall what movie it was. It was like a movie from the city. It was like a movie from the 70s or something, or 80s. Because I just couldn't remember. Codename Emerald. I think that was the one. No, that's not the one. Because it was a spy movie. Doctor in the W. Because he's done a lot of movies that were pretty cool, that were pretty good. Like the one is is Dune, which no one will never forget that one. Wild Geese 2.
Yeah, and now to be quite honest, when it comes to Dune, I honestly think that could have been a great movie.
Yeah.
But New Line had to come in and say, cut the thing in half.
Yep.
Because it's not like David Lynch wasn't unfamiliar with science fiction, and in fact, he was approached by George Lucas to direct Return of the Jedi. Lynch refused because he felt that the film should be Lucas's vision.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if that was the smart move.
Well, it was the smart move at the time because you have to realize back in the 80s, it wasn't simple for them to do this type of, because at the time he was like, hey, I'm working on this film, would you please let me do this film? Because he was doing more than one film back in the 80s. Let me see. Let me look at it, because I know that he did a lot more. Like he did he did the screenplay for The Elephant Man, Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet? That was a hit or miss. Because he was working on some other projects, that's for sure. Let's see. Yeah, and he also did Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and Twin Peaks was of course really damn good.
Yeah, and I'm surprised they're gonna make another freaking episode of it. Like, I'm surprised. Like, another freaking series out of it. But Dune was, I still like Dune for some weird reason, especially when Sting was in it.
I think the thing about it is that is the fact that it has such a it's a visual style that you're not going to forget.
Yeah.
Is something that certainly helps. But one thing I will say is that I would have loved to see the version that Podorowski was going to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that they did the documentary about that about what Podorowski would have done, but they kind of were like, because there was a lot of art that was left out of that whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they had to get. Go ahead.
The other big problem is that New Line didn't get what Dune was, because New Line wanted Star Wars. Dune is not Star Wars.
Yeah.
Dune is Shakespeare.
Yeah, it was a space opera.
Well, it was very much a space opera, but the stories that I always come to, as far as what were probably the main inspirations,
mm-hmm.
is stuff like Macbeth and Hamlet.
True. And they kind of fused into that whole movie when you saw how, because I remember in one scene where he was like speaking like a poem or something. Patrick Stewart was like doing a scene where he basically did this line in the movie. You recall that one line? I can't remember.
Like, I probably could, but I can't remember right now.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but I do recall that he did like something out of Shakespeare. Like he did like this poem and basically said something in that line. And it kind I kind of liked it, but I kind of forgot what he said a long time ago.
Yeah, but the problem was that they tried to they had Lynch basically try and Star Wars it up.
Yeah.
And a part of that is bad timing, and a part of that is also who was producing the film, namely Dino De Laurentiis, who's basically a slightly less cheap version of I'll say a little less shameless version of Roger Corman.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do recall when it came to Dune is the fact that the CG stuff that was a little too CG was not at that level to really do the whole shield thing right.
Because my understanding was it was basically the film, they used animation film, like because back then, they didn't have the money to do special effects, but they did have the money to, just go into the film and basically like draw.
Yeah, that sort of block stuff. That was. I get what they were going for with it, but it's so out. But it's so out there. It takes you out. It takes you out of the experience.
True. And they had to use like miniatures and such. And I remembered in that film that film was just kind of like they couldn't really do much with, because you have to realize they did platform effects, they did like miniature effects, they practically made that film what it was, and it fits. Yeah, they were basically using Godzilla effects. Especially the psychic floating objects and everything. They were basically using everything they could to make it look cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Let's see. I also remember that. Now, one of the criticisms with the film that I cannot personally attest to is that the story is impenetrable. And the reason I can't attest to that is because I read the book about a year before I saw the movie. I mean, could I see other people saying that?
No, I don't know.
Possibly.
Possibly.
But I can't. I can't personally attest to that because I can see how things would piece together.
Especially the art and the style that they were trying to pull off. But then again, did you see the TV the mini series of it? What did you think of the mini series?
Dune and Children of Dune. I thought they did they did the best that they could because they had a TV budget, and science fiction does not really go well with science fiction, especially when you're doing the big stuff, doesn't mesh well with that kind of budget. So there were certainly effects issues.
You all right, man?
The other big.
Nah, let's checking something out. Something fell.
Oh, okay.
I'm good.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it was just God. I was just checking something. It's just that something fell on the floor, and I was just looking for it. I found it. It was a pen. Never mind. Let's see what I can. So. I'm reading these things about Clinton receiving. Oh, it says here that Qatar has given Clinton's charity $1 million while she was the State Department. Let's see what else we got. You know what? You know what TV show I've been watching recently? Well, I was talking to Mildred, but yeah, I was watching. I was rewatching Hokuto no Ken, Fist of the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it was actually the animated movies. the 86 one, the Fire Legend ones, yeah, the raw origin stories. He wanted to be a straight up demon. I I would say it. He couldn't because, well, he didn't have what Kenshiro had, which was compassion. Or
You know, maybe sometime down the line I feel like I should revisit Hokuto no Ken based on all that I've learned in the last few years about wuxia. Because when I look back at it, I very much see that the greater story beats of the series are like a wuxia epic. And granted, there's still a lot that I don't know about that genre, but I've learned a lot in the last few years, and I want to re-examine it in that context.
paperback.
Like just um to be quite honest, I don't really have a dog in the whole hardcover versus paperback thing because it all comes down to taking care of it. Huh? It is very much so, and a lot of independent developers have to use paperback. You're not going to see as many hardcovers. Um, you might see more that dichotomy may have started to change due to how many people have been able to get some successful results out of Kickstarter. Like
Personally, I personally
I'd say the last 5 tabletop games that I've run have had some Kickstarter funding.
personally I prefer book wise I prefer solid, but paperback wise, as long as they're both laminated or in made out of very high quality paper, I don't think I don't think I complain much. But well, here's the thing: as long as you can take care of the books, set books, comics, or whatever, yeah, I think you're good. So, but when it comes to stuff like drawing pads, yeah, I prefer solid. I prefer a solid bag.
ISO. They've been get the I've got a bit of issues with the way Paizo's done business over the years. Some of the things, if I get the chance, I might talk with Routes about. Is yeah, I think they're because the big problem that I've had with Pathfinder is that they've essentially flooded. They've committed the same sin that everybody criticized D&D Third Edition of doing, of just flooding entire bookshelves. Now, far be it for me to tell somebody don't produce books, but it's yeah, don't produce content. But it seems like they are overproducing at the level that that caused the D20 bubble from 2000 to 2005. Yeah, there were a few books that had gotten their fair share of controversy. The Book of Vile Darkness and the Book of Exalted Deeds. I remember being yeah, the Book of Erotic Fantasy, but that was a third party book. So but the big problem was that you had so much like what happened with the Atari, you had too much shit and not enough sizzle. Or something like that. Where you had there was a lot of content out there, but there was not much in the way of quality control with that content. And a lot of it was just kind of meaningless. Yeah. Yeah, and Greyhawk for the longest time was kind of the mascot campaign setting for D&D. Mm-hmm. I will say one thing about how Pathfinder runs things. Their artwork is amazing. Sometimes the artwork can be a little over designed, but Warhammer can have that same problem. And I absolutely adore Warhammer, so I can't really pass a judgment. It's well, a lot of the people who were at Paizo were former writers for those magazines. Do the Yeah. Um, yeah, which the idea was to do a follow up that was still going to be compatible with third edition rules, but I think as time passed, they kind of drifted away from that and went straight into making making their make trying to have their approach supersede third edition. And to be quite honest, the other reason why I had no interest in Pathfinder is because it did not do a good enough job at addressing third edition's problems. I'm not saying go. Third edition was a vast improvement, and I sometimes feel like I'm going crazy because I distinctly remember so many people hating third edition back in 2000. Yeah, and then then sometime later, fourth comes along, and everybody uses almost the exact same set of arguments that I saw with third. Like I
Yeah.
distinctly remember complaints about third edition being too much like Diablo, which is ludicrous to me because there was a Diablo module for D&D. No, it had. I'm not sure if it was on. I distinctly remember one that had the official seal and all that. Even had this nice little plastic case for the whole thing.
Well, gentlemen, I'm gonna fuck off. So
All
I
right,
will see you all later.
all right. Stay frosty.
All right.
But since it's using editions that I'm not necessarily playing right now, I'm not touching it. Especially when I just got. Yeah, I've done that. Hell, I just did that kind of thing with 13th Age, converting three of the classes from Diablo 2 into 13th Age. If you're trying to convert the rules completely straight, it can be tricky. But what I've decided to do every time I do one of these conversions is less of trying to convert it straight and more of spirit of the source material, just using the new mechanics. Like when I've done that sort of thing with Final Fantasy, for instance, I don't intentionally try and figure out. Okay, so the Black Mage has to learn all of these spells at this level, all of these spells at this level, all of these spells at this level, and they have to work exactly like they do in the games. Now, of course, that's impossible because sometimes the spells effects can change from game to game. But yeah, although third, a big problem with third edition that I had that has only rarely been addressed, and every time it has been addressed, it's been a bit controversial. Is spell bloat. A bit of, and I shared this with Routes the other day. I did an experiment to see the page to spell ratio for some of the games that I have. Now for as a control, I was only using the player's handbook or its equivalent for each game that I did. Fourth, third edition has 286 pages and are dedicated just to spells. Pathfinder has 396 pages. 150 of them are dedicated to spells. Yeah, the thing personally, I don't think that D&D has ever been able to get skills down right because it wasn't designed for them to begin with. In the same sense that, say, L5R or Shadowrun are designed around skills. And yeah, I just checked. That's about 40% of the book is dedicated to spells for D&D Third Edition's Player's Handbook. Well, to be fair, I can't. That's the one problem that I definitely did have is tying the skills to the classes. You also had way too many skills. Like, do we really need a run, jump, climb, and swim skill? I honestly prefer how other games will do it and just combine all those together as athletics or acro. But if you look at the way skills worked previously, they were percentile things that were basically the special ability for certain classes like rogues or rangers, instead of a universally shared setup. Like if you look at since it's one of my favorites, I'm going to use L5R as an example.
Mm-hmm.
The core mechanic is centered around it, and you'll see this with a lot of games. It's attribute plus skill versus target number. In the case of L5R, you roll a number of d10s equal to attribute plus skill, and you keep a number of them based on the attribute you're using, and compare that to a target number. If it gets over, you succeed. If it doesn't get over, you fail. Some games will have a sort of degrees of success or degrees of failure, i.e., cases like, say, how many multiples of 5 you got over or under will determine how well you succeeded or didn't succeed.
And I used to remember some people used to mock all the funny stuff that they do in like the modules, like the old modules. I used to remember people doing memes of modules.
Well, I've certainly done my fair share as well as stuff like the out of context D&D. That,
Yeah,
which I think I shared that one with you.
yeah. Like a lot of people, like they're making they're like. I remember someone did the like the Gary Coleman one. No, I'm not kidding. They actually did it with Gary Coleman as a wizard. Like they do like impromptu jokes on that one. Like the guy did it like in an official storyline. Like, how the fuck did you do that? But it was a fan. It was fan created. The guy basically was trying to parody a module and try to do it in a weird way that he just to mock the whole module because he hated it. And he put Gary Coleman into it. It was like he inserted Gary Coleman into everything. Like it was basically trying to find a dungeon, and that dungeon so happens to involve Gary Coleman trying to get the heck out of D&D. Because you were supposed to help Gary Coleman get the hell out of D&D because Eric Mona and all the other guys from Wizards of the Coast, he pissed off all the people because they were trying to do a movie, and thus he was magically got into
God, that movie sucked.
Yes. And he said, fuck you, I don't want to play a gnome. No thanks, I don't want to be a D&D stupid. I was like, I'm not a gnome, bitch. Making fun of the fact that Gary Coleman didn't want to be in D&D. Because there was a rumor going around that he didn't want to be in the D&D movie.
To be fair, I probably wouldn't want to be in the D&D movie either.
I know.
Unless we're talking Darkness Rising, aka the actual D&D movie.
Yeah, well,
Maybe one of the greatest running gags of all time with the fact that the bard constantly dies.
that movie was just not that good. I don't know why they try to do that.
Which one? The D&D movie?
Yeah. Because I understood that Gary was like, I wasn't. He was in the movie, but unfortunately they didn't show it.
Well, the concept of doing a D&D movie is something that had been kicking around since the late 70s.
Yeah.
Especially with the success of the I wouldn't say success, but the fact that it got an animated series.
Yeah.
Then again, this was the 80s where everything was getting an animated series.
Yeah.
Fucking Rubik's Cube had an animated series.
True. And Pac-Man. And Mario Brothers. And Q*bert. And laser. And laser. And laser. And laser tag.
Oh, God.
Laser tag.
What the fuck?
I remember laser tag, and then they tried to do. I think Photons was another one. Photons was an anime, but unfortunately, Photons was only popular in Asia.
Maybe there's a reason for that. And yes, there was an anime that was taking heavy notes from Dragon Quest, but when you take into account the fact that the guy who did a lot of the artwork for Dragon Quest was Akira Toriyama, is it really that much of a surprise? But the fact is, like, this I think because Harry Potter was getting some success. Some studio exec said, "Hey, we still got that D&D thing kicking around, don't we? Why don't we do that?" That was the mindset that was had.
Yeah. It turns out it was called Zillion. Zillion.
And
the red.
The thing that I'll always remember when it comes to the D&D movie is the purple lips. Like he's trying to be threatening, but it's just really distracting.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he was trying to act like he's the Man in Black thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was all sickly and everything. It's like they tried to, because he was cursed or possessed by some type of monster that was inside his head. I forgot what it was called. Like a brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like a brain. I think it was called a brain leech. Let me look it up.
For a split second, I thought you said brain bleach.
Brain leech.
Mm-hmm. But Darkness Rising, I consider a superior film because it actually replicates the experience of playing the game.
Yeah.
But I will give the D&D movie credit for one thing and one thing only.
What?
Jeremy Irons overacting through Solid Steel.
Yeah, and he kind of said that he did it for the money, so it didn't really matter to him.
If he was the one who decided to do that level of overacting, can of Coke for him. Funny thing in the movie is just seeing him go so over the top. Having one of the Wayans being in the thing was just a case of what the fuck.
True.
But I can't really put it on the full level of so bad it's good, as far as the full film, just because it's not willing to go all the way with the bad and just fully embrace it. It's still trying to take itself seriously.
Yeah, it tried, but it just didn't do so well. And I know that the actors tried their best to make the film happen, but it just didn't seem to do much for the game.
I think the other problem is that it's very clear that nobody who was involved with it really knew what they were working on.
Yeah, well, one of them did, but unfortunately they were kind of off on the deep end of the whole thing.
Who, Irons?
No, Irons wasn't the one, but I knew that one of them was a very, very nice person, and that actor happened to be the youngest. Let me see if I could find him.
Was she the one who was underacting throughout the whole thing?
What's his name? Let me look at it. See if I can find the cast. See if I can find the cast list. It was, if I can remember, okay, IBM. One of the leading actors, which was not Jeremy Irons, Justin Whalen as Ridley.
Ah. Yeah, so she kind of knew what she was dealing with, but she was just She was just the kid in the group.
Yeah, because he's a pretty good actor. It's just a shame that let's see, right now he hasn't done any movies since 2009, so I guess he retired. Dungeons and Dragons, Ridley Freeborn, so he did that film. And he seemed to be into it. He was very into the story. He knew what Dungeons and Dragons was. He basically explained that it was a problem solving thing in his interviews, as I recall.
Which I'm not sure if that's completely on the ball, but it's certainly more on the ball than what other people were probably saying.
Yeah, and he
As
basically
a fan,
yeah, because he said that he played D&D himself, but after it's a shame though he doesn't get that many role. Like I don't understand.
I think it's that whole thing of he was working on something that
Yeah.
was that.
Yeah, well, he did a film called The House That Jack Built. What else did he do? Because he hasn't done any roles since 2009, so it's pretty much that he probably retired. Because he was doing it with
I can certainly see that.
the Deadpool. That was that 80s movie. Let's see. Yeah, because oh yeah, he was a child star.
We know how that always ends up whenever child stars.
Yeah.
It's very rare that child stars.
Because he was working at age 11.
And it's very rare that child stars manage to have some sort of career once they grow up.
Yeah.
And the only big one I can think of off the top of my head is Jackie Earle Haley. He had a few roles here and there, most notably in Bad News Bears. Then he disappeared for decades and came back as Rorschach.
He did a pretty good job with that character. Guess that's why he was more into being an insane guy, but he was pretty simple.
One example of out of context D&D. Why do you even want an apron? Because I'm a thief and I want things.
Yeah, that's pretty much why people play thieves.
Yep. Let's see. Would you say the giant looks French?
Seems like people are bringing up weird conspiracy theories again.
Over what?
Giants. Put up giant aliens. No, I'm not kidding.
Oh, one of those. I remember a friend of mine talking about that stuff.
Oh, really? What did he say about giant aliens? Yeah, and they're
tried to convince me that the evidence was out there, and I outright said the thing that's become that seems to become a running gag.
Yeah, it seems to be the running gag about people need to believe in this shit. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's hard for us to believe it.
Well, My running gag. It seems that my running gag, especially on Twitter, is posting up Occam's razor.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just keeps applying, and it's it very much works whenever these sort of things come up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like. Did he try to explain to you that aliens are freaking real? Like, seriously?
That's just fun to imagine, but
It's hard to believe it.
mm-hmm. And this is coming from somebody who does so much work with science fiction.
Yeah. Like the what if scenario if a giant alien shows up on the planet. They did that, I think, in Macross, the anime, for example. Giants showing up and invading and starting a war with planet Earth. I recalled that one. But
for the record, if someone was to ask me to do tabletop Macross, not I would not use the technical Macross game.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be using the Robotech RPG. I know that it's breaking the rules to use that name.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. I have no desire to run anything with Palladium because Palladium gives me a headache.
That's understandable. So you would rather create your own rules in your own way to figure out what would be the best idea for the game.
I would probably use, because it already takes a little bit of inspiration from it, I would probably use Cthulhu Tech as a base. Cthulhu Tech or Mechton Zeta. Both of them would work pretty well. The one thing that I think would very much be a head scratcher for me is figuring out how to do the transformation. And how to make it so that the players would actually want. Because, and I'd probably try and replay some of the Macross games back on the PS2. Because what I need to figure, because if I'm doing the transformation thing, what I need to figure out is why you would want to go from flight to guardian to mech and back in actual play.
Yeah.
Like each one of those three modes has to have their own mechanical advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, like a turn or something like that. If I'm gonna transform. What are you gonna transform to? Jaywalk mode. Okay, then you have to sacrifice a turn for it.
I don't. Given how seamless the transformation is supposed to look like in the show.
Yeah.
I don't think doing it. I think doing it as full turn, I think, would take too long because.
Yeah, that's true.
There's the implication that a full turn is something that you're devoting all your effort to.
Okay.
So I think maybe if I was doing this for say Spycraft, I'd say maybe a half action you could do it.
Okay.
But the main thing is that each one has to have strengths and weaknesses as far as like mobility, firepower, and all that. And that's where things get tricky. Because it would be very easy to have people just do mech mode. I know there's a proper term for it, but I can't think of it right now. But you see where I'm going with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, and until I figure that out, I need to I would need to I wouldn't be able to do it properly.
Yeah, I understand. Because you would have to figure out what would work and what would not work in the game.
That, and I'd have to figure out how to do it so that people would want to. The whole thing is that people need to want to switch between the two for tactical use in combat. I do know about Robotech Tactics,
Mm-hmm.
which is a miniatures game that has the whole transformation thing,
Okay.
but I don't have that right now. I might consider getting it just to see how it works there, and use that as kind of a base.
The base idea of what you would want to create in a game.
Going between multiple forms in tabletop games is always going to be kind of crunchy. So it's more of a matter of figuring out how to do it without there being too much crunch. The reason why I'd want to use Cthulhu Tech, it doesn't do a whole separate character sheet for a character's mech. And the mech you have gives you a boost to your core attributes, and you're using a different damage scale. I think the scale is vitality, and when you're in a mech, it's integrity. The difference is that 1 point of integrity damage equals 50 points of vitality damage. But I like that idea because it's still showing that even if two people have the same mech,
Mm-hmm.
the person who is a better pilot is going to win out. I'm working on doing some multitasking. Are we still live?
Yeah, we're still live.
I will freely admit, though, the very tricky part, and this is the reason why I'd be hesitant to do it, is because, well, first off, I need to figure out how closely I'm sticking to timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am sticking very closely, that means I'd have to do a lot of rewatching. And the original Macross alone, and the thought of marathoning that gives me a headache.
I watched it, and I can say that it's same old stuff, and I would rather just keep it in my collection because I have it. I have like the Macross DVD series, not the Robotech one.
Well, the main thing that I have to figure out is what is a good starting point, because I don't like the idea of basically doing the same story that the show did. So I need to find some kind of spot that gives me a little bit more leeway.
I would say MS-13, but Mobile Suit Gundam MS-13 would have been the best idea for an RPG. But then again,
well, that's a completely different series. I mean, for Gundam, there's plenty of spots where
Yeah.
I could make it work.
Yeah.
But we're talking Macross.
Yeah, Macross. Because it's kind of difficult because mostly the stories lean towards music and
Well,
robots.
the thing that I have to figure out is the thing that I have to try and figure out is which settings main premise would
There's a lot of
have the best jumping on point
there's a
for
lot
any
of
sort of character.
there's a lot of settings like the because the reunification wars were kind of dark and and scary because I remember this because this was when they explained about it in Macross Zero, the UN unification wars. Like they were trying to unite the whole planet because the aliens were coming. In Macross Zero.
That might be a potential spot because you've got multiple angles to work with.
Yeah, because I remember they explained it in the Macross Zero story how it all happened. Like the UN Spacey had to fight against the anti-UN forces, and of course they introduced the because what happened was in the storyline you might recall that the freaking aliens crashed back in 2000, I think in 2000, I think around 1999 or 2005.
That was when the ship that they reverse engineered crashed.
Yeah, crashed, and then they found everything, and of course they find out that they had to reunite the whole world under one banner because otherwise, they were gonna deal with the freaking because they knew that the aliens were coming. Because they had to form that whole, and of course the anti-UN forces opposed them because they didn't want to reunite under circuit, and it became a huge freaking war.
I think if I was to run it, I would start it. I would probably run it through several eras where the first two being the unification wars and then the first invasion when it comes to the Zentradi.
Yeah, because the anti-UN forces were like because they were getting killed left and right because a lot of people, according to the storyline, when I watched it Macross Zero, they explained it and they showed only a little glimpse of it that the unification wars were kind of let's just say they were killing people left and right, and people kind of disagreed. We shouldn't reunite, and of course we have to reunite because the aliens are freaking coming. Like they didn't tell them that the aliens were coming; they knew that they were coming. They just basically told them, "Look, we need to reunite the world under one banner, or else we're gonna be fucked." Because a lot of people didn't want to fight, and it kind of got into like a political drama between the people who are united under the UN and those that don't want to be a part of the UN because of this whole stupid craziness that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the UN was right about one thing: they had to unite the Earth, or else everyone will die. And it was a kind of the premise of the storyline behind Macross Zero, because they kind of had a conflict between and of course, the anti-UN forces found the technology to make, the enemy aircraft transform into cool-looking robots, same as the other group. But a lot of them didn't have that. A lot of the UN Spacey didn't have that technology. Like they basically just had to go with the F-14, the VF models, but they didn't get them They basically were too late to get them, and of course they had to fight the freaking anti-UN forces with their new high-speed robotic robot machines. And it's like, wow, really? And that whole storyline. Because you have to watch Macross Zero in order to get into that thing. Because it's just a shame that they did try to license it, but it was kind of difficult to get it into the United States.
Because Harmony Gold, and because of that one dumbass in California.
Yeah. As in there was no plans to officially release the series in English due to legal concerns of the Macross copyright, including limited to the original series, according to Tommy Yoon of Harmony Gold USA, sub-licensor of the original Macross series, because of that whole lawsuit situation with Big West and Studio New.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that they officially have the rights to Macross Superdimensional Macross for 1981 and Macross Fortress Flashback 2012, which was the music video.
Unfortunately, I think that that little lawsuit ended up causing more problems than it actually solved. And it's probably the reason why the franchise never was really able to take off in the States. Was eventually able to get some footing in the States.
True.
Especially even though its main footing was through Wing, which was technically a.
And I didn't mind animes like that. It's just right now, I'd rather watch them unofficially, because right now, Japan isn't gonna license
because of the licensing things, and that's kind of why I find it very, very funny when somebody takes a very black and white view about fan subbing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because for starters, they're ignoring the fact that a lot of things managed to get really popular due to fan subs.
Yeah,
and at the very least, there are a few people over in Japan who get it. Koichi Sakamoto, who is the stunt coordinator for a lot of tokusatsu, including Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and Power Rangers.
Yeah.
He's openly acknowledged he's openly acknowledged that and put in a few nods in the Japanese versions. I distinctly remember the creator of Umineko acknowledging the translation by a group called Witch Hunt.
Yeah. Got people to actually.
The creators of Haruhi actually thanked the fan subbing community for helping the thing take off.
Yeah, especially Ranma 1/2 back in the 80s. Oh boy. And I recall back in the 90s, the fan sub community acknowledged well, actually the fan sub community actually really subbed Fushiyugi the Mysterious Play. And I used to remember that back in the 90s, and I remember a friend showing me a guy showing me a VHS of the anime, which was fan sub. And I used to recall back in the days, I was an illiterate son of a bitch, and I could barely read fan sub sometimes, but after practicing, it got better for me.
I was able to read them. I was able to read them pretty quickly, but I can see where there'd be problems.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of the ones back in the VHS days weren't really on point.
Yeah, some of them were
Still some
kind of
work to
hard.
do.
Some of them had bad English. Like some of them just couldn't really make any sense to people.
Some of them were about as bad as Hong Kong subs.
Yeah, that's true.
Bad.
Well, back then, I recalled back on the internet days, um, the fan sub, especially I got to thank somebody from the fan sub community who showed me some really good animes, and it said that back then you had to download them through FTP Cup. You may recall what FTP is.
That thing, yeah, that thing was a nightmare to try and manage.
Yeah, especially it hurt. It hurts. It hurts them if you download if you told everyone that you downloaded from that website. You have to keep it on the download, otherwise it would hurt their bandwidth, and it's expensive for them to put that up. And thus they introduced and I used to remember back in the 56K days, oh boy. 80 gigs of memory just to download one episode.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it wasn't 80 gigs. It was actually 80 megabytes. And I remember a person doing that. And then then it got to 124 megabytes. Oh boy, those were the days when videos became like simple.
See, this is the reason why you don't hear me do a lot of the back in the old days kind of shit that so many people do, because I know as